Hello, Kurt Jackson here with this week's installment of Your Money Matters. Hey, just want to make a quick note. Today's St. Patty's Day. Next Wednesday, I won't be having a blog. I'm out of town the first part of the week, so I won't have time to get it done. So I apologize for that, but we'll pick it up the week after that. Today, we're going to talk about, I found this a really good article out of the New York Times by a gentleman by the name of John Schwartz, and the title of it is Retirement Reality is Catching Up with Me. And I'm going to just kind of read some of what he talked about, and then I'll kind of give my little comments at the end on the good and the bad of this. And basically it says, I'm a pre-retirement worker of an economic class well above the poverty line, but well below the 1%. I set up a 401k when I got a job, and I set an automatic contribution, then basically do my best to forget it's there. This set it and forget it approach has served me well for several decades of gainful employment, but lately my ignorance has been anything but blissful. And when I read this, I thought, you know what, that's probably like most everybody out there, that nobody really likes to deal with money or think about money. So more and more, it's all been gnawing at me, a kind of unease that I can't block out. So I decided to take a hard look at where I stand. Why has it taken me till I'm nearly 58 years old to open my eyes? My excuse is simple. Numbers scare me. I'm not alone in this. Scientists who study math anxiety say that the anticipation of crunching numbers can lead to the kind of agitation that, on a brain scan, looks a lot like physical pain. Okay? And he says, math isn't my only problem. I'm uncomfortable thinking about money, and let's face it, the future scares me. I think that's very common for most all of us. As much as I know about money, the future still scares me. He says he's better off than most people because the national average says 45% of working age households haven't even saved anything for retirement, which is scary. And the national median retirement is what, $3,000. So we've got a huge problem. But he goes on to say, I'm better off than that. In fact, we're pretty lucky compared with many Americans. For one thing, I've always worked for companies that pay reasonably well and provide pensions, which they have fully funded. Those companies have also sponsored retirement plans for employees and encouraged them to build 401k accounts, and he's done that. So now, all right, he's worked for 3 companies over 30 years, and he's claiming the pensions. Okay, that's fine. But when you don't work for a very long time, that's an average of 10 years, those pensions are not going to be very big. I'm not saying they're bad, but they're not. I don't know how much he's going to really be able to count on them. He doesn't really go into details on that. But if he only worked at each place for 10 years, those pensions probably aren't going to be much, even if they are fully funded. All right. So basically, after they looked at, they got through life. Their kids are gone. They got the help. They got them through college. They've got everything paid off. They had sold their house, downsized to pay everything off. So they basically felt that they had some breathing room, but they had no idea where they stood in retirement. Because I had all but stopped looking at envelopes from Vanguard after 2007, when my funds lost about 40% of their value. Not an unusual dip thanks to that economic crisis and recession, but a painful one. That sounds familiar, I think. I think a lot of people have done that, and I know they did that for a while. They've probably been looking at them recently because the market's been doing well. So the gnawing convinced me at last that this was the year to get our finances together. Maybe past time. If the numbers didn't come out right, and while I hope to have many good years of productive work ahead, I also have to think about retirement and plan for it. Okay, to look at whether I'm on the right track for comfort in retirement or ruin, to begin addressing some of the other issues, including life insurance and a will and all that I've been avoiding all these years. Now, all these things are things that he really should have been looking at all his life, but he hasn't. And he explains why. As I said, I think that's very common. But at some point in time, we need to grow up and become financial adults and handle these things. And the sooner you do it, the earlier age you do that, the better off you'll be in retirement. That's a guarantee. As it happens, the 401k accounts I built up at these 3 publications I've worked at over the last 30 years are all under the same roof, the mutual fund giant Vanguard. That promised to make things relatively easy, and the company offers free counseling from a certified financial planner to clients of employer-sponsored plans who are over 55. All right, so basically talk together and set up an appointment for a phone session with one of their certified financial planners, or he could get a more thorough current counseling session by first filling out a survey that would give the planner a more holistic view. And the survey was said to take about 45 minutes. So he sat down with his wife and told him they were going to do this. And when he got to the survey, it's the very first question. It stumped me. He says, what age do I plan to retire? He says, this is part of the problem. These are precisely the questions that I've been avoiding all these years. And you don't necessarily have to have a drop dead date, but you need to kind of have an idea. I mean, you could have an idea when you're 30 that you want to retire at 65 or 67 or 70 or 60 or whatever it is. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's when you have to do it, but you need some kind of number to work to begin working from. So they knew that Social Security kicks in at 62 and that you can earn more if you hold out longer. A lot of people don't really realize that. He says until 66. Medicare begins at 65. And after hunting around online, it appeared that sticking with gainful employment until 70 would lead to the biggest Social Security benefit. Now, that's partial. And I think this is where people get into trouble. True, you can get the biggest Social Security benefit by waiting till 70 to take your Social Security benefit. But that doesn't mean you have to wait till 70 to retire. There are lots of different ways and maybe smarter ways to utilize the money that you've put away if you want to retire at 63 to bridge that gap to 70. It might not make sense, but it might. But you got to take the time to look at it. So he's living under a lot of the I call them misconceptions, but there are things that we've been taught our entire lives that everybody just holds to be true that really aren't true. So it said it took him more than 45 minutes to answer that first question. In fact, so he came to the second question, and that was, how long do you expect to live? Okay, this is, I got a problem with this because it seems like one of the other issues I have that I'm seeing more of a traditional financial planning is they're just saying, okay, how long do you expect to live? And they plan for income to that age. So if you plan to live to 85, you expect to live to 85. Okay, but what if you live to 90? What if you lived to 95? What if you lived to 100? Most recent actuarial tables, a male 65 today has a life expectancy of 86, and a female 65 today has a life expectancy of almost 89. What does that mean? That means that half of the people that are 65 today, men, will live past age 86, and half of the women that are age 65 today will live past almost 89. A married couple has a 50% chance for one of them to live to 94, a 25% chance for one of them to live to 97, and an 11% chance for one of them to live past 100. Right? So we need to plan. So do you want to plan for, oh, I plan on dying here and then running out, and that's when you schedule to run out of money? Because that's what traditional planning does, or part of it does at least. So, all right. So then they asked, what percentage of your income are you planning to receive in retirement? Isn't that an answer that the financial planner should be helping them with? He says, another search of websites, I saw that many people look for about 70 to 80% of their working income in retirement, assuming that they're going to live less expensively. Okay, you may do that, but you got lots of factors factoring in there. Do you want to reduce your lifestyle in retirement? I don't think most people want that. Right? So, okay, so then he said he went ahead through the questionnaire. He had to track down what he could expect to receive from Social Security each month at age 70. You can find that pretty easily at socialsecurity.gov. Although, when you look at that figure it could be low because they're not factoring in the cost of living because they don't know what it's going to be. But we try to look at what the cost of living is because you're going to get that too. And if you're making more money now than you have, you could be increasing your benefits also there. So there's lots of different things to look at. So he's really being very simplistic on this. And I understand we want to be simplistic on things, but when it comes to retirement, that's not the time to be simplistic. We need to be thorough. And then that does add some complexity, and it does make it a little harder to do, but it still doesn't make it less important. So he said, yeah, I shut my laptop off 4 hours later. He says they weren't done, but they were at least thinking along in the right way. So he says over the next few days, he finished the form. Soon after that, Vanguard came back with the report generated for his answers. Said he should be more heavily invested in bonds, and considering his age that he had too much money in stocks. It says Vanguard had been telling him that for a while, so it was no surprise. But then it said, you're on track to reach your retirement goals. Okay. Now, he didn't put all his numbers down and all that, so I can't tell you for sure if that's the case. But here's my deal. How do they know? Right? They're assuming the market's going to do things. Okay. He says, and then they're planning, I mentioned this earlier, they're planning, to live to their life expectancy. So they planned an income to that, whatever that age was that he said. Okay. Next, bonds. The thing is, well, as you get older, you need to have a bigger concentration of bonds and less in stocks because it makes you safer. Well, while bonds might be safer than stocks, they're not safe. They have significant risks. Those risks right now are, as interest rates go up, bond values are going to go down. So if you're more invested in bonds as you're older, and we're in an interest rate environment that's been really low for a long time, they really have nowhere to go but up. I don't know when they're going to do that, but eventually they're going to have to. Will you still be alive? What's that going to do to your bond portfolio? The market isn't safe either. You know, we've averaged since 1900 a 47% drop every 11 years. We've experienced 2 huge drops since 2000. So if he's 58 and he lives another 30 years, that could be 2 or 3 47% drops, and he's got his money in the market. Is that a smart place to have that? Personally, I don't think so. They didn't talk about taxes. They didn't talk about taxes on Social Security. They didn't. We didn't get into inflation. The cost of healthcare for a married couple at 65 today, they're estimating out-of-pocket expenses, not including long-term care, $220,000. So I reduce I can live on 70 to 80% of what I was because I'm not putting away money for retirement and I don't have a house payment. Okay, $220,000 in healthcare sure sounds like a house payment to me. So maybe we need 100% of what we had or more, and it needs to be able to grow to keep up with inflation. So are they going to, everywhere they have their money, it's all qualified plans. Are they planning on leaving a big tax bill to their heirs if there's any money left over? Okay. Did they talk about an income for life or just a good chance to not outlive their money? I didn't see anything about any income guarantees, about any products, because Vanguard doesn't sell those. So if the Vanguard certified financial planner, I'm sure he's trying to keep them in the money there in Vanguard so he can continue to make the money year after year, whether they're up or down. He didn't talk about any guaranteed products. Said he liked his pensions. Well, how would he like some more pension-like income? Okay. I think most people would like that. You know, so what if Social Security benefits get cut? What if Medicare costs go up? What if tax rates go up? They didn't talk about any of that. So see, very simplistic. How does a certified financial planner give them a plan without really talking to them after they answered a handful of questions on the survey? I feel bad for this guy. He's made a lot of mistakes. Looks like he's done some things right because he's got some money away and they think that he's going to be fine, but they don't know he's going to be fine. You know, I like to deal in certainties. You know, I like to set up. What if I want to retire at 65? Great. Here's what your income would be. If you want to retire at 64, here's what it'd be. 66. And then you can make the decision on when you want to retire, knowing that I'm going to have this income for the rest of my life, and then we can ratchet it up through different strategies to either every year it goes up or every so often it goes up to help keep up with inflation. So there's just a lot of different ways of doing things. And folks, all of my stuff talks about how traditional retirement planning is not your friend. It's your foe. And hopefully this will help kind of, since I try to put a personal spin on it with this gentleman here. I don't know him, but his story is very similar to people that I talk to, and I would imagine that probably struck close to home with you. So if you think about it, it's not simple. I'll make it as easy as I can, but if you'd like to look at, make sure you protect your money, make sure you minimize your taxes, make sure your income's going to last the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. If you want to leave money to your kids, we can structure it to where you can leave it without taxes. Because if you keep leaving it where it's at, you're going to create a lifelong tax bill for your family. And if you don't have control over how they take that money after you die, they may unknowingly create a huge tax bill for themselves, even bigger than it would have been, and reduce maybe up to half of the value of what you left them because they make a mistake. So you can structure to where that doesn't happen. There's a lot of different things that can be done, and I just think that when you sit there and think that I'm throwing money in my 401k, I'll be fine. You know what, folks? I don't think you're going to be fine. Because I don't think that's not the most efficient, safe place to put that money in. It's certainly not tax efficient. It's not efficient to get the most money out of it and to guarantee it for income for life. So hopefully you enjoyed this a little bit. If you have any questions, you have my contact information will be up there on the screen. If you'd like to sit down and talk more about it, about your situation, be happy to do that. We could make sure we get a very comprehensive, holistic plan that looks at every possible angle we can, and make sure that you're comfortable, and then you have that peace of mind going into before retirement and when you want to retire, and then as you live through retirement. So thanks for tuning in. Once again, I won't be here next week. We'll be skipping a week, but we'll be back the week after that while I'm in North Carolina at a training. So keep in touch, and thanks for tuning in. If you like this information, please share it with anyone that you care about, friends, family, coworkers, if you feel that they might benefit from this information. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you next time.